Hello everyone. I wanted to make a video where I go into a little bit of detail, although this should be a relatively short video, about something that I talked about in a post about a month ago or so, maybe a little longer by the time I get this video posted, about something I've noticed more and more often. There seems to be an uptick of this, of psychological or pseudo-psychological terminology being used to shame people, particularly people that don't go along with the narrative that you're supposed to believe in when it comes to a lot of the current events and issues that we face. You guys can, I'm sure, figure out what a lot of those issues are, although I'm going to focus in on two or three of them here. For example, if you refuse to take this experimental medicinal injection, if you want to call it that, because you don't think that the reward or the benefit from getting that is worth the risk, people are now saying, well, you're a psychopath or you're a narcissist for not wanting to do these kinds of things. And I've literally seen those terms thrown out there more and more often just for people not being willing to do something like get one of these shots. You see this thrown out there for guys that don't want to get married, right? I've seen an uptick on that for years where if a man says, you know what, I'm just going to be single because I don't see how marriage benefits me, oh, you're selfish and immature, you're Peter Pan. Some of those terms are, of course, not really psychological terms, but I've seen more often some of these terms like narcissist and psychopath, sociopath being thrown in there. And really, guys, the terms psychopath and sociopath are not actually used to diagnose people within the discipline of psychology, right? For people that are like clinically trained to actually make diagnosis, whereas narcissist and some of these other terms are used to diagnose people in some cases. But nonetheless, right, these are supposed to have specific meanings. A psychopath is someone that basically lacks empathy and just cares about themselves, to the extent that they can't really form relationships with people. It's all just fake, but they don't really care about people like a narcissist, right? A narcissist, they have a weak sense of self-esteem, and so they have to have attention from other people all the time to kind of keep themselves afloat. And a sociopath is someone that basically just can't get along in society. Like, that's a lot of the prison population, right? The people that actually act out antisocial criminal behaviors, and they don't plan things out well. They're very impulsive. They're very emotional. That's more of a sociopath. And I'm not going through all that just to show, oh, Dan really understands what these terms are. Right? I'm not trying to demonstrate any particular knowledge. It's just that these terms have particular meanings, or they're supposed to. And yet nowadays, these terms are thrown around for anybody that makes a decision based on their own self-interest rather than going along with the mob and what the useful idiots in our society, which unfortunately are the majority of people today, right? The normies, so to speak. If you don't go along with their way of thinking, at best you might be called stubborn or immature or uneducated. But nowadays, there's even sort of these pseudo-psychological terms being thrown out there. And so the whole reason for this short video, guys, is to try to draw attention to this. And just like a lot of the content that I make, a lot of it is about providing or trying to provide people with information, right? Trying to kind of share notes and talk about what I see going on. And this is something I see going on more and more often, as this sort of divide between what you're supposed to believe and reality in the bigger context of our society now. As this continues to become worse, you're seeing people now say, oh, you know, you're a psychopath or a sociopath or a narcissist because you refuse to have a certain medicinal product injected into you, that if you're healthy and you're young, you don't need to have that experimental drug put into you in most cases. And if someone's cost-benefit analysis or risk assessment, I guess, is different than that, then that's fine, right? If you think that this virus going around is more of a threat to you than the vaccines, then go ahead and get vaccinated, right? It makes no sense, as I've said many times on this channel, it makes no sense to expect that other people can make you do what you don't want to do when other people can fully protect themselves by one of these supposedly safe and effective vaccines. If they're so safe and effective, but then by their own logic, there's no reason to make other people do it. They're already protected just by doing it themselves. But we can see that a lot of that is not true, right? We can see that it's being spread by people that are vaccinated. And you guys know what I'm talking about, the current medical crisis that we've had for going on 2 years now. But the whole point, guys, is in that kind of situation, or even if you just say, you know what, I'm done having relationships with women, I'm not going to have anything serious anymore, I'm going to focus on me, you're going to be called selfish, arrogant, immature. But now some of these other terms are starting to filter into the dialogue, right? Now those shaming tactics aren't strong enough, so we have to move on to the next thing, which is to try to suggest directly that you have some sort of personality disorder because you won't conform. The whole point, like I say, guys, in me making this sort of commentary is to say that you're going to see this more and more, I think, as there continues to be a greater and greater divide between people that are just useful idiots and they're just doing what they're told versus the people that are taking a step back and saying, wait a minute, this doesn't really make sense. Why should I have to do this? Why is this healthy for me? There's really very little in the way of rational arguments that can be made against a lot of this, guys. So you're going to see more extreme language like this, right? This is what I called years ago in one of the first videos that I made, the dark side of being red pill, or the dark side of the red pill, which is that the more awareness you have over this stuff and the more that you apply this awareness to your life, the more often people are going to be hostile toward you, right? People are going to see you as a threat because you refuse to go along with the charade that so many people want you to go along with. And our political leaders and those that are steering the culture in the direction they want it to go are a big part of the problem, but it's mostly the useful idiots that will throw these names at you. Right? How dare you not go along with what society demands of you, even though it's not in your self-interest? You must be a narcissist. You must be a psychopath. And at best, like I say, you're just going to be called stubborn, or you're uneducated. You don't believe in science, right? All of this is just different types and different levels of shaming language. And that doesn't mean, of course, that you can't be selfish or that you can't be anti-science in some ways, right? You have to investigate that yourself given the particular issue, but that's not the point here. The point is that these names are going to be thrown around even when you're the one that's actually thinking, even when you're the one that's actually objectively looking at a situation and coming to a conclusion for yourself. A lot of the time, there's no argument to really be made against this, so the mob is just going to throw these words at you. They're going to not really care about what a narcissist really is in terms of any sort of diagnosis from an actual clinical psychological perspective, right? That's not what that is. That's just an attempt to shame you. We're going to see this kind of stuff more often, I think, in the future, guys, in the short term even, right? Like this is going to continue to see an uptick because the attempt to shame people into doing what society and the leaders, the political class that controls the flow of information in this society, that controls the politics and the culture, as they get more extreme and more demanding, you're going to see more and more of this terminology put out there. And I just want you guys to be aware of it. At least in my opinion, this is happening more often. And unless you actually are being selfish, or unless you're actually worried about your own mental health in terms of, well, am I a psychopath? We're not, guys. You're not a psychopath, right? Unless you actually display those tendencies of just literally not caring about anybody else, and that's not what you are. This is just being used against you to try to shame you into doing what our leaders and the useful idiots out there want you to do. And I think it's important to be aware of it, to recognize it for what it is, and to get the people that use that type of tactic to try to shame you, to mostly if you can, get those people out of your life, especially if they do that on a regular basis. Don't be friends with these people. Surround yourself with better people than that if you can, or just be alone if you have to. Don't allow these kinds of people to shame you using some of these psychological or pseudo-psychological terms, along with a lot of the other terminology, like saying that you're against science, you're not on the side of science, or that you're just selfish or immature or you're Peter Pan, whatever. Don't let those people that say those kinds of things deter you because they're just trying to shame you into complying with what they want because they don't really have your best interests in mind. Recognize that when it goes on, guys. Like I say, I've noticed more of an uptick in this, and don't let these people essentially make you think that you're doing the wrong thing for yourself. Evaluate your own actions and choices based on your values and based on what you're trying to accomplish with your own life, and get most of these people that are just trying to shame you using these kinds of terms out of your life if you can, and minimize the impact that they have on your life as much as possible, because it's not about trying to help you. It's not about trying to reason with you. It's just about throwing whatever terms they can at you so that you'll do what society wants and that you'll conform. And that's all this is. Don't be a part of that if you know better in terms of the choices that you're making for yourself.